keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
Hello and welcome in on to Coffee Break. I'm your host, Dante Gomez, and with me today we have DenverSports.com's James Marilat. James, thank you for joining us. I've actually been looking forward to doing the show with you since last Thursday. I think I'm finally ready to agree with you. The Broncos can't beat a good team. And I think you stick to your ears, and I think you're finally getting people to join on your bandwagon here.
As I tweeted Friday, when I'm listening to the station and I'm hearing everybody say, hey, they're only 1-6 against good teams per James Palmer. I'm like, per James Palmer? I've been saying this for weeks that they haven't beaten a good team. I haven't gone through and added it up, but heading into last week, it was 39-81 was the combined record of the teams they've beaten. That didn't get better this weekend. And look, they've won 9 games. 8 of those teams, Dante, have either fired their head coach or changed their quarterback. 8. The only team
that was the stat I was coming in with as well.
And
yes,
Tampa,
the stat I was, yep.
And Tampa has, they're 8-7. They're extremely mediocre. And look, they've had bad teams on their schedule. They can't help that that's who's on their schedule. And they've gone and beaten those teams. Okay. There's no sin in beating bad teams, and they've pretty much boat raced them. There would be a sin in losing to those teams. So, okay. But all I'm saying is we still don't know if this team's worth a hoot. And Thursday night was the chance to show it. We didn't get it because they blew an 11-point lead in the second half. They'll get a chance on Saturday, even though the Bengals' record isn't good. That's a good offense in Cincinnati in late December. That's not easy. They'll get a chance. We'll see what they're made of. But, yeah, we still don't know anything about this team. We know nothing.
No, I mean, completely agree. Co-sign at this point. The stat I was coming in was same thing. They have 1 win versus a team that has the same coach and quarterback from the start of the season till now. And I do give them credit for beating bad teams because you see that happen in the NFL all the time. Average teams lose to bad teams. The Cardinals lost to the Panthers. The Buccaneers lost to the Cowboys. Those are great examples of average teams losing to teams that they should not be losing to. So I do give Sean Payton and the Broncos credit for not having any of those on the resume, the schedule this season. But when it comes to the playoff time, you're only playing playoff teams. And I just don't think this team is there yet, but they're also ahead of schedule. Can you admit they're a little, were you expecting playoffs this season, first year rookie Bo Nix season?
No, I wasn't. I thought this was a 6-11 team. So they're ahead of schedule, but I was on with our friend Dan Jacobs yesterday. And if they lose to the Bengals and lose to the Chiefs, if they finished 9-8 and missed the playoffs, they were 8-9 a year ago and missed the playoffs. So with a significantly improved defense, we're going from one of the worst in the league to one of the best. They improved by 1 game, and they will have beaten nobody. Last year, they went to Buffalo and won on a Monday night. Last year, they beat the Chiefs. I think you can make the argument they've actually regressed year over year, given how much their defense improved and how easy their schedule was. That will be a failure. If they go 9-8 and don't make the playoffs, I don't care what the over-under was. That is a failure if that's how this thing ends up.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit with failure just because the win total was 5.5. No one was expecting playoffs. I think the goalpost got moved halfway through the season where the expectations just got too high for what this team actually is. And this team is just an average team. They're not a great team. They're not a good team. They're just a little bit above average. So I think failure is a little strong. I'm going to disagree with you on that, but it's just they haven't proven to me anything. They're Indiana in college football where it's like, hey, you beat up on Rutgers, you beat up on all these Nebraska, but guess what? Right. You played Ohio State, you played Notre Dame, and then we got to see who you really are.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, even if they do sneak into the playoffs, let's say the Chiefs win on Christmas Day, right? So then they have nothing to play for against the Broncos, and they sit their starters, which I'm not sure they will because that'll be 2.5 weeks between significant or meaningful games for them. But let's say they do, and the Broncos beat the backups for the Chiefs and get into the playoffs at 10-7. We still won't know anything about them. They'll be going to Buffalo for a first-round matchup that's got Mac Jones and the Patriots losing 47-7 written all over it. So I just, I don't think we know anything about this team. And I bring up Mac Jones for a reason. As a rookie, he went 10-7, led his team to the playoffs through 22 touchdowns. Bo Nix, so far as a rookie, 9-6, looks like he's taken his team to the playoffs. He's thrown 22 touchdowns. let's pump the brakes on we found the answer. I don't think we found the sport yet.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Still not. You know what? I respect that opinion because I think people were a little too quick to jump on. Oh, he's the next, Elway Manning Knicks. Like the shirts were already getting made at that point.
That is crazy talk. He hasn't been as good as a rookie as Jay Cutler was. Trevor Siemian in 2016, replacing Peyton Manning, was every bit as good as Bo Nix has been. There's some reasons to believe he could turn into it. And I'm more optimistic about it now than I was on draft night. But to say it's a done deal and we know is so premature. It's ridiculously premature.
No, I was one of those. I waited 8 weeks to give my full judgment because I thought, rookie season, it takes a little bit to figure out what you're doing there. No matter how many college games Bo Nix played, it's still going to take some time. So I reserved judgment until like week 8. And then around week 12, I was like, oh, I think the Broncos have found their answer. And you know what? You're right. It has been premature, and we've seen a lot of these rookies flash early in their careers, and it just sometimes doesn't work out, particularly rookies that do use their legs, which Bo Nix had a lot of success when they were winning those games early in the year with his legs, which that can be kind of a gimmicky offense. So I'm with you on that. I think let's wait. We saw Mac Jones have success very early. We saw Simeon have success very early in their careers. There's a lot of guys that fit into that category of very early on success, relying on a great defense. And they just, especially Mac Jones actually is a great comparison. Happy you brought him up. This weekend, though, would you be impressed looking forward here with a win in Cincinnati, or would you still add that on to the list of teams that don't really are not playoff teams, playoff caliber teams?
I would be impressed. I mean, look, if the Broncos win, that means the Bengals are 7-9. So I guess technically they're not a winning team, but that's a really good offense. They've had some heartbreaking losses. I mean, lost 35-34 to the Ravens when they had 3 penalties against them against the Ravens that didn't go called on the 2-point conversion to win it. So, that they're a good team going to Cincinnati for a meaningful game on December 28th. The weather is not supposed to be very good. That'll be an impressive win. It will be.
Will that be their best win on the season?
Yeah, because I think the Bucs game right now is their best win, and I think they caught the Bucs sleeping a little bit. Right? The Tampa Bay had just beaten Detroit. They had Philly coming in. It was a trap game for the Bucs, and the Broncos took advantage of it. I think the win against Atlanta's hard to figure out. But winning 38-6 against any NFL team is pretty impressive. But I think given what's at stake, the Bengals aren't overlooking the Broncos here, right? They got a chance to get themselves right in the race here if they win it. So I think this will be their most impressive win. Just as had they pulled it off on Thursday, that would have been their most impressive win.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought I still can't believe they didn't win that game in LA over the weekend. I don't think we've had a chance to break it down here. So where do you put the blame pie, as Zach Bye likes to say, in terms of they are up by 11. They get that horrible penalty at the end of the first half, gives them 3 points. A couple bad penalties throughout the game, just horse collar tackle on Justin Herbert at one point, a late hit on when Herbert was sliding, gave him an extra 15 yards. So it seemed they were a little undisciplined, which we have not seen from a Sean Payton team in his 2 years in Denver. So that was a little surprising for me. But where do you put that blame on that Broncos loss?
I primarily put it on Sean Payton. I mean, he went out of his way yesterday to defend his play calling at the end of the first half. It's inexcusable. Like to have to punt there, to put yourself in a position to punt is ridiculous. So let's just real quick walk through the scenarios. Like 40 seconds left. It's 1st and 10 at the 18-yard line. I can see throwing the ball there, trying to see if you can get something going. If you get a first down, you get out past the 30, you got a couple timeouts, you use one and see what you can do. But when the first down play loses 3 yards, the clock is ticking. You haven't stopped it. The Chargers haven't stopped it. They're content to go into the locker room at that point and have it be 21-10. The Broncos snap the ball with 17 seconds left on second down. You're at your 15. You have almost no chance of scoring in 17 seconds from your own 15-yard line. Virtually none. They throw an incomplete pass that stops the clock at 13 seconds left. Now Harbaugh's like, well, I might as well use my timeout if they run it here. They do. Calls a timeout with 8 seconds left, and now the Broncos have to punt. which 3 bad things can happen on a punt. It can get blocked, it can get returned, or what we saw happen can happen. There was a 0% chance of something bad happening had they just run the ball on second down, let the clock run out, and gone into the locker room. And here's the other thing. The penalty, we can argue about the penalty if we want to. I think Jim Harbaugh takes the free kick even without the 15 yards. 72 yards from the middle of the field in a dome with no pass rush. Most kickers in the league can give that a pretty good shot. He loves that rule. He told us after the game he loves that rule. He'd have taken a shot at it with or without the penalty.
Yeah, I don't understand why the punt didn't just go out of bounds. There's zeros on the clocks. What is, you're only giving them a chance to A, do what happened, or B, catch it and return it for a touchdown, or who knows what happened. They run a crazy pitch play, whatever happens. Yeah. I don't understand how the plan wasn't to just kick it out of bounds or waste time enough to where it's just zeros in the game. There's no more possessions at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess the penalty gave them the untimed down. The clock would have run out, so they might not have had the chance to do it. It would have been interesting to go back and look at the clock and see how much time would have been left when he did fair catch it. That would have been interesting. But either way, why even bring it into the scenario, right? Like, run out the clock, go into the locker room, punt the ball out of bounds. But, have Bo Nix run around for a couple seconds, throw the ball out of bounds. There's so many things you could have done there that don't add the variables in which they did. So it was a total mismanagement of it. And, I don't like when a coach mismanages the clock. But in the heat of the game, the heat of the battle, I can see how you get a little aggressive. You think you love your play call. Oh, it was there. We just missed it. Like, I can understand that. But 72 hours later, to still defend it and act like you were right, that's why these mistakes keep happening. Because Sean Payton doesn't see that he's ever wrong. Like, he was clearly wrong in how he handled that. And so had they gotten away with it and had they, the clock run out, it still was a mistake. Having to punt there was inexcusable. That was total mismanagement of the clock.
I'm not sure I believe you that you don't love coaching mistakes. I think that's like a shot of espresso in the morning. I think that's what gets you out of bed in the morning, James. So I don't know if I believe you on that.
High school coaches can make these decisions correctly all the time. They do. If you were at a high school game and that had happened, we'd all been sitting in the stands going, what on earth are they doing? All right, he's an NFL coach. He makes $1 million every Sunday, every Thursday, whatever day the game is. He got paid $1 million for that game. I don't think he earned his $1 million.
Nope, that's fair criticism, especially when he is making as much money as he is. Let's move on here. We'll do a quick little college football playoff recap. Were you able to watch the games this weekend?
I was. It was a disappointing batch of games, but I don't think that means they got it wrong. I think the whole idea is you want to give these teams a chance to prove it on the field. Do they belong? Just because they didn't, that's like saying, hey, because a 16 never beats a 1, let's not let in the Cinderellas. Just because a 15 hardly ever beats a 2. Like, it's going to be the exception to the rule, especially given the fact that the lower seed has to go on the road. These aren't being played on a neutral site. I think we could play 5 years of this, so that'd be 20 games. I think we'll see 2 or 3 upsets. And again, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It means, okay, you've at least given them the opportunity. The percentage of lower seeded teams in the NCAA tournament that win is really small too, but we still let them have their shot against the big boys. That's the same thing we saw here.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of discourse online about, why did we let SMU in? Why did we let Indiana in? This is why we shouldn't do these things. This is why we should have more SEC teams involved. And then we saw Tennessee get their butt kicked that night as well. They actually had the worst loss on the weekend, score wise. But no, I'm with you. I like them, giving them a chance. And I saw a graphic where it was the first round of the playoffs, NFL playoffs versus the first round of this college football playoff, and the point differentials were within like a point or two of each other, and those were the averages of all of those games over the weekends. So
yeah, I mean, look, the Broncos, if they're the 7 seed and they have to go play at the 2-seeded Bills, they're probably going to lose. But I think last year was it the Pack that was the 7 seed and beat the Cowboys that was the 2 or something like that. They did beat the Cowboys. I forgot the numbers, but yes. Yeah, it's happened before. But by and large, Dante, most years the 7's going to lose at the 2, the 6 is going to lose at the 3, and the 5-4 is going to be a coin flip, right? I think we'll see in the college football playoff more often than not, the 12 is going to lose at the 5, the 11 is going to lose at the 6, the 10 is going to lose at the 7, and the 8-9 gains a coin flip. That's what we're going to see most years, and I'm fine with that. But you mentioned Tennessee. Yeah, if Ole Miss and Alabama can't beat Tennessee in their own conference, I don't know what they're complaining about, because Tennessee had 30,000 Vols fans at the shoe and still got blown out. I think that kind of makes the case of, hey, there probably is 7 or 8 good teams in college football, and that's about it. So I don't need to see Alabama again. I mean, Ole Miss would have been fine. At least it's a little bit of new blood, but I was fine with the way it went down. I would have liked to seen an upset, but honestly, the fact that there wasn't one probably makes for a better round of games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think the biggest problem was the fact that the conference winners do get those automatic buys. And that first round would have been a lot more competitive if you did have Boise State playing in there and you had ASU playing in that first round. And then you kicked out Texas, you kicked out Notre Dame to those buys. So I think there's definitely some formatting issues that they'll probably figure out. And you mentioned that there's probably not 12 teams. In most seasons, there's not 4 teams. Even when they went to the 4-team playoff, that 1 versus 4, the 4 got blown out almost every single time by like 20 points. So, it's nothing new.
In order to get a Cinderella, quote unquote, in there, we saw this with TCU a couple of years, right? And then they pulled the upset over Michigan, and the national championship game turned out to be one of the worst of all time when they got 60 plus hung on them. So better to weed them out in this round and give them their shot. Somebody goes on a hot run, great, or somebody who's much better than anybody thought. Because, maybe Boise State turns into that team. Like, oh, my God, they play in the Mountain West. Nobody gave them any respect, and they truly are an elite team. We'll find out. But I'd rather have a bunch of stinkers in the round of 12 than in the semifinal or in the final.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I'm looking forward to the college football playoff still. I know people kind of gotten a tissy fit about it, but the whole point of the playoff is to crown a worthy champion, and I think that's what we're going to get at the end of this. And those SEC teams that are complaining about not getting in, they are not worthy champions. They had 3 losses during the regular season. You knocked yourself out. It's not no one's fault but yourself. Let's move on to a couple more Denver-based subjects here. We got the Nuggets first, I believe. I can't remember if I did Nuggets or Avs. Nuggets, perfect. All right, Nuggets needed OT versus the Pelicans last night. Jokic plays 43 minutes. So it's a great stat line. Back in action tonight, taking on Phoenix, and they have a little back-to-back there. They'll take on Phoenix in Phoenix on Christmas Day. Still concerned about how this team looks. It looks like they just did not want to be out there, especially early in that game. And now Jokic is just piling on minutes. Murray's looked better as of late, but not quite that he's never been an all-star, but I'll say all-star level that we're hoping for. What have been your thoughts on the Nuggets as they've kind of picked it up in the win column, but not quite in the eye test?
No, and they lead the league in 10-point comebacks in the final 10 minutes of a game. They've got 5 of them. They could have 7. They almost did it against Portland. They almost did it against Washington. That's putting yourself in a hole way too many times. For a team that hasn't played all that many games, have already had 5, 6, 7 of those where it could have turned into that. I think it's a lack of interest. I think this team has been very unfocused. I was hypercritical of Michael Malone staying home to watch his daughter's volleyball game. And I get it. It stinks to miss those moments. But when you sign up to be an NBA coach, that's the deal, right? You got to travel. You're going to be gone. You're going to miss some moments. It's a lot of on the road. It's a lot of late nights. You're working weekends, all those things. Like, that's the deal. That's the deal. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the 3-game road trip where I think it was New Orleans, Memphis, and somebody else, might have been 2 against Memphis, where they could have won all 3 games. They went 1 and 2 because Nikola Jokic decided, I'm just going to stay home for 2 weeks because my wife is due. Again, I get the importance of it, but when she goes into labor, hop on a private plane and you're home in 2 hours. I just think missing 3 games it's a lack of attention to detail. It's a lack of focus, and this is a team that's playing like it. The other part of it, Dante, is if you're the Chiefs and you kind of coast through the regular season and keep winning games late and 1-score games, you're kind of playing with fire. You've earned it. You've won back-to-back Super Bowls. You've been knocking at the door every single year. The AFC title games in Kansas City seemingly every year. They've earned the right to say, hey, we'll turn it on in the playoffs. The Nuggets haven't. The championship year was the aberration. Most years with Murray or with Malone and Jokic, they've been an underachiever in the playoffs, getting bounced in the first or second round, including last year. So I think it just is a bad mindset, and it's a team that thinks they've done more than what they really have.
Yeah, I'm with you. I get that mindset, particularly from Jamal Murray, where he thinks he's made it. He thinks he's this, all NBA type player. And it's like, dude, you haven't done anything. You got helped to a championship. I get he was great in that Lakers series and in the actual Heat final series as well. But without Jokic, you're a lottery team. If Jamal Murray is your best player on the team, you're a lottery team. So I hate his attitude most of the nights. But again, he's picked it up the last week or so, let's call it. Shooting closer to 50% in a lot of those games, contributing over 20 points in a lot of those games. So I'm excited to see where they go from here. Excited to see if they get a little Christmas Day bump. I feel like NBA guys always love playing on Christmas. So hopefully that gives them a little bit of a juice going because, like you said, they've looked a little disinterested this early on in the regular season. And then let's wrap it up here. We have, real quick, playoff picture. Nuggets are currently in the thick of it, the 5 seed to 12 seed in the West, only separated by like 2 to 3 games. Do you kind of picture them as that little in that mid-level through the next coming months here? Or do you think they will separate themselves into one of those top 4 seeds?
They got to be a top 4 seed. I mean, I argue with Mike Evans about this all the time. Seeding doesn't matter. Well, outside of the bubble, the Nuggets have never won with Malone and Jokic a series in which they were the lower seed ever. When they won the title, they had the home court advantage in every round. Like, they got a lot of evidence that they can win it this way. Zero evidence that they can win anything this way. Why on earth you would want them to be? If they're a 6 seed, they'll be fine. No, if they're a 6 seed, they're going to be one and done. I think it's vital that they get into the top 4. I thought it was important last year for them to get the 1 seed. They didn't. And I know people scoff at that, but if you'd have played New Orleans in the first round instead of the Lakers, who gave them a battle, I think that would have been and then you could have avoided Minnesota until the Western Conference Finals, much simpler path. So losing that tiebreaker was huge.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on the seeding. I think is very important. I think, and the Nuggets, the championship, you're correct me if I'm wrong, they were up, I believe, 1-0 in every single series too.
They lost the second game to Miami.
And that was the only series where they weren't 2-0. Yep.
Yeah, they were up 2-0 when they went on the road before they ever had to play a road game in the first 3 series. That's just invaluable. And I know they had some injuries when they lost to the Suns in 4, when they lost to the Warriors in 5. But there's also a team when fully healthy that's lost twice in a Game 7 on their home court. They lost to Portland in 19, and then they lost last year to the Timberwolves. They struggle even when they have home court, let alone when they don't. I don't think it can be overstated. I don't.
No, I completely agree. I just think the West is too balanced of a conference at this point. There is no, we're automatically going to roll past, whichever team you want to throw out there. But let's finish it up here. We got a little bit of Avs. Avs have been streaking as of late, 8-3 in December here. They made the goaltender trade, 2 of them actually, a couple weeks back here. And it looks like the vibes in the locker room have picked up. I know Nathan McKinnon's been a lot more complimentary of the new goaltenders versus the old guys. So do you think, it's one of those where the Avs can just, wash their hands and be like, we're good from here. We're going to be in the playoffs and we'll see. It's kind of once we get to that second round, we'll kind of actually see where this team is.
Well, I think the key for the Avs, their early season struggles were mostly due to 2 things, injuries and goaltending. Right. Whereas the Nuggets, outside of Aaron Gordon, it didn't have to do with injuries. This is injuries. They're getting healthier. So if they're healthy and they get fine goaltending, they've never needed great. They've never even really needed good. They just needed be fine. Right. They're built to win 5-4, 5-3, 5-2, like they did last night, 5-2. And Blackwood was fine. He gave up 2 goals on 19 shots. They played better in front of him. Right. Like there were a lot of games where Georgie faced a lot more than 19 shots, but he was fine. He prevented it from being one of those, you let 4 pass you in the first 8 minutes of the game. As long as he's just competent and they stay healthy, they're going to have a shot. They're going to have a shot because their stars are playing at a high level. Val had his 11th goal last night. I feel like he just came back and he's got 11 goals. So, Makar scored. McKinnon's playing at a high level. Rantanen's playing at a high level. But Val's playing at that point. They're going to be just fine as long as they get fine goaltending. And I do feel like, do I think Blackwood's better than Georgiev? No, I think it's a coin flip. But I think to some extent, if the people in front of him have no faith in him and no trust in him and just think every game, oh my God, we got to go score 6 or we don't have a shot, you had to make a change just for change's sake. It's just it's a different face And even if the level of play is about the same, a different face is what's going to make the difference.
No, absolutely. I think it's just they say that a lot about coaching sometimes, where it's like, hey, just a new voice sometimes, a little refresh. So you weren't willing to go there. I'm going to put in pen Avalanche into the second round. I think that's where the playoffs or the season really starts for this team at this point.
Yeah, it should. I mean, it's really two teams that are very similar. They've each had their championship, and otherwise they've been a disappointment in the playoffs. The Avs have had more opportunities. They haven't gone in without, their version of Jamal Murray. I guess losing Val in each of the last 2 years is kind of like that. But the Avs have had a lot of years where they've been the Stanley Cup favorite. Not only to only have one cup, but to have never gotten to another Stanley Cup final or another Western Conference final, I think is a disappointment. I think if they don't get past the second round, I think there need to be serious conversations about Jared Bednar.
Yeah, well, we will see going forward, but that'll do it for us. James, thank you for joining. We're going to take the next couple days off, but we'll be back on Thursday. We'll recap the Nuggets Christmas Day game at that point. We can do a little preview towards the Buffs Bowl game as they take on BYU in the Alamo Bowl. So we'll have plenty of stuff to get into later this week, back Thursday, Friday at noon. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you again, James, and everyone have a great holiday week.